Greetings, Retro Zoltan here. I introduce to you the Anbernic RG28xx, a product I literally pulled over to the side of the highway to buy the moment Anbernic put it up for the general public. My good friend Bruce donated the money to purchase this, to make it better if I can, and of course let me review it before I send it off to him. A best case scenario for me, of course, and a huge help to the channel. Thank you very much, Bruce. So now with the RG28xx in my hands, let's explore how great this thing is, and whether or not it may be something you're interested in. First off, I was confused by the name of this thing, since Anbernic has already released a few systems with the same chipset, including the RG35XX, the RG35XXH, the RG35XX Plus, and the RG35XX SP. I didn't really question the naming convention of this series until this one. Why did they change it to RG28? Not until I looked at the specs I finally realized it was related to the screen size, or at least that's what I think. This one has a 2.8 screen, while the others have a 3.5. Case closed. At least I figured it out before someone corrected me. Not that I mind, of course, but I needed the win. The RG28xx currently runs at a base price of $48, which puts this in the budget handheld category. It also has 4 different colors: a typical white, black transparent, gray, and a lava orange for those who are afraid they're going to misplace their gaming device. You'll be hard-pressed to lose it. I see a lot of people calling this creamsicle orange, but it doesn't sound as impressive as lava orange. Anyway, I think orange looks pretty good on this thing actually, and if I was Bruce I'd have no regret. The box by no surprise is Anbernic 100%. I think they're Apple fans. It's packed neatly with directions, a little white box with a charging cable inside, and of course a foam insert with the semi-translucent baggie. This sort of packaging has been the standard from Anbernic, and I haven't received a broken item yet. No complaints. I have to say I like these directions it comes with too. I usually ignore these, but there's some pretty good stuff in here you might not know, like how to import your games, and what the LED states mean. The device 100% reminds me of the BitBoy Pocket version 1 that came out pre-COVID, which brings me to talk about exactly why we needed this handheld. With all form factors for this chipset that Anbernic is offering, this one is 100%, without a doubt, a horizontal player meant for portability and pocketability. It's not going to take up a lot of room in your pocket or your bag, it just won't. And not to be distracted, but I'm guessing the solution for a vertical pocketable is the Anbernic RG35xx SP. Wow, that looks really good. This is what gets me in trouble because now I want one of those also. Anyway, where was I? The D-pad may be small, but it feels incredible. It rotates and tilts perfectly. You can feel the conductive rubber membrane with the right amount of give. I'm impressed. I'm not 100% sure my large fingers are going to be a big fan of it in the end, but you've seen me play smaller things, so I think I'll have nothing to complain about here. Honestly though, it feels really, really good. The ABXY buttons are shiny, which I don't mind, but all the other buttons are not like that, so it looks a bit odd to me. But they have done this before. Curious if this is a functional thing to make things easier to slide your thumb around, or just an aesthetic choice. They're nice and springy and small as expected, and I see nothing bad here. I mean, I truly do wish the buttons were bigger, but I also wish Anbernic would send me free stuff to review, so I don't have to pull over on the highway to save a few dollars. That is to say, there is room to make them a little bigger, but jury's still out on how I like them during gameplay. Also, as far as buttons, the start and select buttons are also tiny, but very functional. I think these may be on micro switches. There are no analog sticks, obviously, which raises my eyebrow wondering how many games will be impossible to play on this thing with only a D-pad. I imagine Nintendo 64 games are impossible, because we can't map every possible button and control. But I've heard there's been some mild success after some tinkering around. The screen, while a small 2.8 inches, is taking up as much room on this thing as it can handle. I'm guessing this may strain some people's eyes, but more on that once I turn it on. Also on the front is the speaker. Not my favorite place to have one under your thumb, but with a small unit like this, you're going to have real estate decisions. I get that. I think it's interesting that they sort of slightly decline the corner by the speaker, just like the original Game Boy does. The top sports trigger and shoulder buttons that click nicely. I believe these are also on micro switches. They feel like it anyway. They're super small, but they're separated enough, I feel, to get the best gaming experience without fumbling around too much. Stacking these would be impossible on this thing and would certainly catch in your pocket. Also on the top is a charging port, OTG port if you want to connect things like wireless, which this device to keep costs low does not have. It also has an HD port, which I'm excited to check out, as well as a menu button, thank goodness. I like those. It also has a couple LED lights to let you know if it's on, charging, or has low power. The bottom of the device has an audio jack and 2 micro SD slots. I bought this one with intentions of loading up the second SD myself, but it's out of the box already loaded with games and capable of both firmware and ROMs on the same SD. The right side of the unit has a simple power and reset button, while the left side is a simple volume rocker switch. In the end, it's simple, but has everything you're looking for. Quick stats for the RG28xx are the following. Let's hope I get it right this time. The CPU is a 700 quad-core ARM Cortex-A53. The GPU is a dual-core Mali G31 MP2. The screen is a OCA laminated 2.83-inch IPS with 640 by 480 resolution. The battery is a 3100 milliamp battery that, depending on what you're playing, will last about 8 hours. A 720 HDMI out, a rumble motor with no wireless and no Bluetooth. Now let's turn this thing on and see what happens. It doesn't take long to boot up, and despite the fact that there's a droplet sound for every button I press, I really like it. Better turn that off. Sorry, it's a stupid pet peeve of mine. Okay, the menu consists of gameplay separated into 2 sections. The Game Room tab carries several systems you can play, and the RA game option brings you those games as well as others using RetroArch running in the background. I really like how they handled the RA section, because on certain systems, before playing a game, you can push the Y button and change your core if you want to tweak around with the default settings. If you're more of a RetroArch person, then hitting the menu button while playing the games will bring you where you want to be. Oddly enough, there are a few more things thrown in here, like an e-reader, a music player, and a video player. I decided to test all these, and they work great. The e-reader certainly handled everything I threw at it, including, of course, EPUB files. I can't picture reading a novel on here, but it's definitely possible. The video player, while simple, worked great. Just pop in your media into the proper folder and you're good to go. Same with music too. It's a nice option to have, but I can't picture too many people taking advantage of this. Without adding anything myself, the RG28xx with its included SD can play the following: Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, Sega Mega Drive, Sega 32XX, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, MAME, Final Burn Neo, CPS 1 through 3, PlayStation 1, PC Engine, Neo Geo Pocket, Game Gear, and WonderSwan. With the RetroArch games, there's even more you can play, including Open Bore, Sega Dreamcast, PSP, Pico 8, Poke Mini, Atari 2600, Virtual Boy, Game & Watch, Mega Drive CD, PC Engine CD, MSX, and even more. Ports on this are also a thing if you're into some PC conversions like Quake or Rick Dangerous. And, well, I always wanted to finish Wolfenstein Spear of Destiny. Also on the RG28xx is the option to play vertical games. If you want to take a stab at playing games sort of like they were intended. Well, like this. It's a bit strange using your start and select as AB buttons, but it's just one more cool thing you can do on this thing. The D-pad, as expected, works perfect. No complaints. And honestly, I don't miss having an analog stick at all. The buttons at times remind me how close and small they are, but after using them for a while, it's not really a big deal. Even for my big fingers. Just something to get used to. The triggers, despite the effort to make them easy to find, I still struggle to reach for in the middle of gaming. It's the price to pay for making all this really small, I guess. If you have an SD to USB converter, and want to add a second SD card to your system, I think it's worth it. Just pop in a blank SD in the right slot, boot up the system, and it will fill it with directories. From that point, you can fill it with more games. And when you go to look at your emulators, it will always ask you if you want to use the original SD or the one you added. This feature gives you better control of your library, and I like it. From here, you can also add a ton of more systems, trust me. And even ones the RG28xx wasn't intending on supporting, like Nintendo 64. But it seems to run decent, so you may get lucky if the controls aren't too complicated. Before I forget, I did connect my HDMI to this and it worked great. It maxed out at 720, but still good enough if you're tired of the small screen. With no Bluetooth, it's a bit of a mess trying to add your own controller, so keep that in mind also. Overall, if you're looking for a good quality handheld that's portable, this may be what you're looking for. For the price, it's almost a no-brainer. But if you're not planning on traveling a lot, this may not be a wise choice. The screen looks good, but the size is not for everyone. Keep that in mind. It's powerful enough to play almost everything you desire in a nice portable size. If horizontal handhelds aren't your thing, there are plenty of flavors that Anbernic put out there that are just as powerful. And that's all I have to say about the Anbernic RG28xx. Thank you, Bruce, for letting me fiddle around with this thing. Thank you so much for watching my channel. Thank you so much for your support. And as always, I'll see you next time. Bye.